Yeah.
I found in motherhood that you have to be very comfortable becoming uncomfortable, of being able to pivot quickly, having a company that has supported that type of work-life balance where I have to say, hey, I need to leave. I'm going to be gone for at least a few hours.
Yeah.
But they know that I know what I need to get done. And even if I don't do it in those core hours because I'm at the emergency room figuring out how many
Hmm.
stitches my son needs, that, he's going to go to bed that night. I'm going to finish what I need to get done. That for me is work-life balance.
Welcome to Beyond the Ping Pong Table, the podcast where we delve into the heart of innovative workplace culture that truly prioritizes people. Today, we're joined by Alyssa Dowdalls, a brand communications strategist at BPM, one of the top 35 public accounting and advisory firms in the US. Alyssa brings a diverse background with experience in marketing for a tech startup, a Fortune 100 company, and even a stint as a crime journalist at a top 30 newspaper. Beyond her professional achievements, Alyssa is navigating her most challenging and rewarding role yet, motherhood, something I can relate to. So thank you for joining us, Alyssa.
Thanks for having me.
We connected on LinkedIn a while back, and I recently saw a post that you right before the holidays that you put out with a link to it was a Wall Street Journal, I think, article about how these companies are changing their policies and wanting folks to come back into the office and making it mandatory. And after we've all had a taste of what it's like to be remote and hybrid, that's really going to be a challenge for these companies. Can you talk a little bit about what you were sharing on that post about your recent motherhood experience and going back to work?
1,000%. Yeah. Being in the Bay Area, it's very tech heavy and innovation driven, I'd like to think. And so it was very stark for me to hear about a lot of people in other companies who are now being forced to go back to the office. Being a mother who just went through maternity leave and breastfeeding and all the things, it was so core to be home for that, and to be still at home during the transition of going back to the workplace was so vital for me, because my body, my mind, my life was still going through all these other changes. To add that other change of, if I was being forced to go back into the office, would have been so hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, as a mother, we think about, I think there's a statistic that 71% of the workforce is mothers. And that didn't change a lot after lockdown was over and the pandemic and stuff, because we still got to be at home and we still
Yeah.
got to be with our kids and we still got to do all of these things. So it hurts my heart to think that all of these companies aren't thinking about mothers when they're creating these new policies,
Hmm.
because there's so much we have to do at home still while
Hmm.
we do our typical work day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think what I just shared was, I'm so grateful to be at BPM because we're a company that puts flexibility first, puts families first, and I'm given the trust every day to be like, you can work where you do your best work. And for me, that's at home and close to my son's daycare so that I can be here for all the things I'm needed for.
Absolutely. That trust is so important. Feeling like you can be a grown up, you know what I mean? And make sure that your
Yeah.
employer trusts that you get your work done. Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about BPM, what you do there, and kind of the company culture?
Yes. So BPM was born and founded in the San Francisco area. We're an accounting firm and an advisory firm. So we do all those fun taxes and audits and all the things that keep other companies going.
Right.
We also have a bunch of specialty services like HR consulting, um, and IT security. So I think we've really evolved the company to become an asset and an ally for companies going forward in the future of like the different services they need.
Yeah.
The company culture, when I first joined BPM, I was like, oh, an accounting firm kind of sounds a little boring. Like my whole background has been marketing for, like you said, Fortune 100 or Fortune 1000 companies. I've been in the tech startup world. But what I loved about BPM was the people.
Uh-huh.
When I first met like my boss, she wasn't stuffy. She wasn't
Yeah.
that accounting facade or the accounting what's the word I'm looking for? Mom
Stereotype.
brain's got me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Um, and all the people that I met, I was like, wow, everyone's like really laid back and they're so smart. And even like I joined in 2018, well before the pandemic, and there was already still this culture of if you want to work from home this week, work from home this week. If you want to work from your parents' house, if you need to go visit them, you can do that too. I was in the Bay Area. My boss already lived in Dallas. We already embraced the fact that going forward, the future is going to be remote. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
find the best people if we let them work in the places where they can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not from the Bay originally. I moved up here because my husband had a work opportunity up here. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to leave my job in LA because they were like, no, we don't support remote work. And I was like, but I work in marketing. I do social media. Like, I can do this anywhere. Why don't you
Yeah.
support remote work?
Yeah.
And so when I joined BPM, they're like, oh yeah, if you ever want to go back home, you're more than welcome to. You always have like a job here with us, no matter where you want to sit. And I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Going into the pandemic, I feel like we were already so set up for success
Really
because we
good.
had this remote work mentality. We had, phones that were built into our computers and we had the Zoom etiquette already down.
Okay. Yeah.
So it kind of
Mhm.
put us ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So I guess like what things changed for you or evolved even more when the pandemic hit? Like how did you see the practices, the best practices that were already in place? Did they change or evolve in any way?
I think we got better at it for
Yeah.
sure. There was a lot of, I think everyone was really scared when it first happened. San Francisco was the first area to lock down, and all of us were getting ready for those 2 weeks that
Yeah.
turned into like 2 years.
Yeah.
And there, so there, it, the communication that came from the C-suite was really important during that time. Do
Uh-huh.
we still have our jobs? Are we going to be
Yeah.
able to, be able to feed our families going forward? Like there was a lot of, besides the fact the health fact of being scared, um, it was really imperative that the communications that came down from our CEO and CPO and things like that, that they were really focused on the people and making
Mhm.
sure that we felt good about what was going on and figuring out new systems on how to work 100% remote without an office. Um, and I think they went above and beyond in that way. BPM stood for three names of dudes who founded the company previously, but now it stands for Because People Matter. And it really, that whole time really put their money where their mouth is of like making sure that they knew that we matter, our clients matter, our communities matter. What we did during that time really invested in those things.
That's awesome. So is it a fully remote or is it a hybrid optional?
So
To,
we have offices. I think we have 14 offices now that
okay.
are up and down the West Coast. We just opened an office in Las Vegas recently. So
Awesome.
there are some people who still love going into an office.
Yeah.
That's where they do their best work. I have an office that's 15 minutes from me. It's a nice option if I want to go in and see coworkers and things
Yeah.
like that. But I'm technically a virtual employee. So I spend most of my days at home, sometimes in pajama pants,
Yeah.
doing my best work with my two dogs where I'm most
Yeah.
comfortable. I feel like I get more work done at home than I do in the office because when I'm in the office, I'm just like, oh, I want to see people. I want to socialize. I want
Right.
to go get coffee, do all those things. But when I'm at home, I'm like, okay, I have my routine. I know that I'm going to be, doing some deep work during this time
It
to
works
make
for
sure
you.
that
It
it
works for
totally
you.
works for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to work for everyone, right?
Exactly.
And it's nice to
Exactly.
have that option.
Totally. Like my husband's always been hybrid. And it's, yeah, like net with the two kids at home, it's like he wants to go more to the office, you
My
know?
husband too, during the pandemic, he lasted like 3 months and he's like, I need to just go back.
Yeah. 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 And I'm actually just moved back into this office space where it is like for me, just like a way to detach from everything. But
Yep.
I'm always like, got to do the laundry on the way to the kitchen. And you know what I mean? Like I
I
get
think
distracted.
that plays so much into the modern mother role,
Yeah.
right? It's not just that
Absolutely.
we have our work that we do every day. There's still those other things like laundry, dishes, feeding the dogs,
Yeah.
doing all the stuff around the house. And
Yeah.
So I think during COVID, we learned how to incorporate all those things together of like, oh, I can do laundry during the morning, join my meetings, put it in
Yeah.
the dryer at my lunch. Like
Yep.
that just became part of our routine. And I think that's what makes it balance out so perfectly. It doesn't feel like an overload because we have these opportunities to be able to do the things in between the other things.
Yeah, absolutely. So what tactics does BPM use for employee engagement? Since you guys are like, do you have any days where you guys are required to all come in or try to all come in, or is it any activities they plan or anything you guys for you guys?
Yeah, so we have these committees for each of these offices, also for our virtual region, that
Okay.
plan fun activities, whether if you want to go do them in the office, you can. An example of one we did virtually was we had a Harry Potter house cup.
Hmm.
So everybody who wanted to participate in this got sorted into a different Harry Potter house. And we all had different activities that we could do to get points for our houses. One was like I took a photo of myself wearing a Raiders jersey because I'm a Raiders fan. I got
Yeah.
5 points for that. On National Cappuccino Day, if you took a photo of you wearing or sipping a cappuccino, you got points for that. So it was a way for all of us to connect virtually.
Hmm.
Turns out a lot of my coworkers are very competitive. um, and be able to like learn new things about each other, to be able to like be in this virtual setting, but still be able to feel like we're connected
Yeah.
was really nice. So we make sure we have these committees that are thinking about these ideas of how do we keep people engaged? Do we keep people feeling like this is a culture that they belong in? And we do that like as a firm wide thing, but also we really invest in diversity and inclusion at BPM.
Yeah.
And so we also think about that on that level. And we have colleague resource groups, which I know a lot of places are called employee resource groups.
Okay.
And each of those resource groups also meet every month and plan fun activities, help people get engaged with the different cultures that make up BPM around the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm going to back it up a bit. I'm a mother of two, 3 and 5 years old, and I've been self-employed for 10 years. So I think back to my old schedule and I'm like, how the heck do moms do it? Like, I don't even understand. Like, I feel like it's a lot. I mean, it comes with its own challenges of being self-employed and having, 2 kids, but like, I could not imagine the, 8-hour day, 5 days a week. Um, Obviously the whole factor of not having to go physically into an office cuts a lot of time down, especially if you're commuting and things like that. But how do you feel like modern moms do it? I mean, when you don't have these.
I mean, moms are superheroes. Parents in general are
Yes,
superheroes.
this is parents. Yes.
Yes. And I think like when I think about it, it's all about ROI, right? I take that theory of like work ROI, but I apply
Hmm.
it to my life as well.
Hmm.
Of okay, these are the tasks I need to get done today. Which
Yeah.
ones are going to have the most impacts that I have to get done today that are going to bring me the most benefit, and
Yeah.
those other things can kind of wait and or outsource, right? Like if I don't have time to make dinner tonight, DoorDash is my friend. If
Right.
I don't have time to walk the dogs today, I try to find someone to help me do that too. So I think it does take a village, and sometimes that's not always having family or friends nearby because we don't. But you create that village, right, of people around you who can help you, and you find it,
Hmm. Yep.
and you get really scrappy.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. I think like it took me a while. Like by the time second kid came around, I was like, okay, like I had a lot of things figured out by then, but it was like between childcare and understanding what that's going to look like financially and time wise, right? And once I had that and I was paying for it, my productivity levels went through the roof. Like I'm like, I'm gonna make this count, you know? And
Oh,
then
totally.
and Instacart and DoorDash were my friends for sure. Like I because I didn't have family close by, and at first it felt like, oh, this feels like a little, expensive, a little luxury, but then you start to like realize how much it's going to help the your day to day, and yeah, it could be a lifesaver. So having those resources, I think that's something we're especially lucky here in the Bay Area to have access to.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like I know I have mom friends who didn't go the daycare route, who were
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna go part-time and be able to keep my kids at home because that
Yeah.
ROI made sense to them. To
Yeah.
me, I'm the same way. I am so grateful for daycare, even though it's crazy expensive,
Yeah.
because it means that I get time in my day to be my own person again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be able to like focus on my work and the things that challenge me and the things that really motivate me.
Hmm.
And my son gets to go and learn and be around friends and like get so many great social props that come with that.
Absolutely.
And I have a coworker who keeps her 2-year-old daughter at home while she works, and that works for them as well, right? It's like
Hmm.
that sort of environment motivates her and pushes her forward. And so I think it all depends on the person as well. There's no like one cookie cutter that fits for everyone. And giving yourself the grace as like a mom or a dad or a parent is so important to be like, okay, I tried that and it didn't work. So let me try something else.
Yeah. And I think just having really open conversations with fellow parents is so powerful. Sometimes there might be something you didn't think of, or maybe you feel a little guilty about doing one thing one way and then hearing a couple other people say they do it and it works for them, and knowing, like you said, that ROI is so important.
Yeah, mom guilt is real.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like it's
It,
there no matter what you do, especially as like a
yes.
working mom. It's so compounded of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I like making the right choices? But at the end of the day, if like you're happy and your family's happy and you're thriving, then like
Yeah.
you just got to be like, okay, this is the right thing today.
Yeah. 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 That was so funny. My sister for Christmas this year got me a book that was a cute little like storybook, looked like a children's book, but it says like, there are moms worse than you. Like,
You
oh, you know
know,
me so well. I thought that was pretty great. So what was BPM's, you were there obviously while you were pregnant, right? So what was their maternity leave and how did they handle that?
actually, I was not here at BPM when
Oh,
I was pregnant. I
okay.
left the firm in 2021, the great resignation, right? We all had a lot of opportunities. I really wanted to work within the tech world and have the opportunity to build up a brand that wasn't as well known. So I left for a little bit. And during that time is when I got pregnant with my son.
Okay, got it.
And the maternity leave at that company was outstanding. It was 6 months of maternity leave, fully paid.
Nice.
And so I had a lot of opportunity to spend time with my son while he was super young,
Hmm.
which was so important to me, but also so motivating to get back to the workplace
Right.
because I was like, all right, stay at home mom life is not for me, and
Yep.
that's okay.
Yep.
um, so being back when I got laid off from my tech job earlier this year, it was so important for me to find a company that would be as supportive to parents as my last company was. And I knew BPM's culture went above and beyond in that way. So I contacted my old boss and I was like, hey, listen, I'm back on the market. I would love to be back at BPM
Hmm.
because that culture was so supportive for people who need to be more than just someone at work.
Hmm.
And so I was able to come back and I've had 1,000% support from them along the way. I think the first week that I was back, I was like, and we have a stomach bug and I won't be here next week. And there was no like, oh, you just started back and any of that kind of conversation. They were just like, do what you got to do. Um, and I think that speaks a lot for a company of, their culture was so good and so supportive that was the first place I wanted to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so in 2023, BPM was honored, was it best CPA firm for women? That's amazing.
Yes, which it's won 8 times.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
incredible. How
Yeah.
do you,
And it's,
how did they get there? How did they get there?
yeah. What I love about that award as well, being someone that works in marketing and knows what goes into award nominations, sometimes it can be a lot of fluff. Like we're
Yeah.
so great, and let me tell you why we're so great. But this award in particular actually not only talks about like all the programs that we have, but interviews the leaders, looks at survey responses, takes in a lot more than just like a well-written narrative about why we're so great,
Hmm.
looks at the policies that are in place to make sure that like we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we've done it for 8 years. So they look at the fact that, more than half of our leadership is made up of women. I don't
Mhm.
think that's seen a lot in accounting firms, traditionally white male led industry.
Right.
And we've recognized that for a long time of how do we create programs and policies that uplift women and get them ready for these leadership roles.
Mhm.
Um, Making sure that people have the skills and the motivation and the opportunity to be able to move up and grow within their careers in the lane that they want to. When I was talking to our CMO before rejoining the company, she was like, "Where do you see your career growing? We
Mhm.
don't want to put you in a box of like this is what you've done before. Like, where do
Yeah.
you want to be, and like how can we put you in the right position to make sure that you get there?" And I think that is a great example of why we're a best CPA firm for women, because not just me, women across the board are
Mhm.
given these opportunities to be like, okay, do you want to be partner? Here's how we can get you on a track to partnership. If you don't want to be a partner, because there's a lot that goes into that, let's make sure we get you to the seat that you want to be in.
That's amazing. So really just having those conversations regularly with your employees is
Yeah, doing
yeah,
those like gut checks, saying how
yeah,
can we support where you want to go next. It doesn't
yeah.
have to be where you were today or yesterday. Like, I know I've like changed my career path multiple times of being like, okay, I'm going to be a crime reporter. Okay, I'm going to be a social media marketer. Okay, I'm going to go into content. And now I'm like loving the internal communication world, and just having those opportunities to like pivot along the way as I've figured out what I
Right.
love to do is so important. Because then you just, if you don't, you get stuck doing the same thing that you're like, well, I know how to do it, but like I'm
Right.
not really feeling good about it.
Right. Right. What other ways does BPM support diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so we have our CRGs, which I mentioned before, which are these great. We have 8 colleague resource groups. The one that's been around the longest actually is the Women's Initiative.
Mhm.
But we have others that support people within the Black community, the Latinx community, the disabilities community, um, the AAPI community, the interfaith community. It's creating all of these different pockets for people who either identify within those areas or they want to learn more to be able to support people who identify as that. And making sure that we have programs or paths for people within those groups to feel supported, to feel heard, to make sure that they're part of the conversations and policies that we're creating for tomorrow, which I think is so important, not just for the accounting industry,
Mhm.
but for work cultures in general, to make sure that everyone's a part of the conversation and feels like no matter what your experience has been, that we want to hear you and support you,
Mhm.
and make sure that you're going to be at this firm tomorrow.
Yeah. That's awesome. What initiatives have you seen that support employee well-being, especially for working parents?
Yeah, well-being, like it feels like a different word for me now, because before it was like, okay, I've got to
Yeah.
exercise and drink a lot of water, and those
Right.
things are important. Mental health is like so vital to me now, of just like you can get overwhelmed so easily as a parent. We have a caregivers CRG as well, designed to bring parents and caregivers together to have conversations and provide support and have those opportunities to be like, this is what I'm going through today. Has anyone else gone through this?
Yeah.
Or like, here's where I am in my career, but like I want to go to this next step. How have you done it as parents of like older kids? Or yeah, so just having those support groups to make sure that like your mental health is feeling good is really important. We have a lot of the programs that I've seen at other companies where, if you exercise a certain amount, you get so many points.
Hmm.
And you can use those points to like shave some cash off of your insurance premiums, or you can use it to like buy things at a store. But what I really love about BPM is it's not just saying, hey, we'll incentivize you to take care of your well being. I know that I can take the time out of my schedule to go do that. Like I
Yeah.
have that comfort and trust with like my boss and her boss and leadership to be like, hey, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to block this hour off on my schedule to like go on a walk and make sure that I'm feeling good today, or taking time to go do a yoga class, things like that. I think those are where the two things need to match in a culture, not just like, hey, we're going to like incentivize you to take part in your well-being. We're actually going to give you the time to do that. Because
Nice.
it's one thing to say it and it's another thing to do it, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, we want you to feel good, but hey, can you join this meeting when you were supposed to go do that well-being opportunity?
Right. Right. Um, what, let's talk about work-life balance and what that means to you.
Yeah.
Right before we started, we talked about how our kids are home, but you actually have your daycare open this week. And so that's an
Yes.
opportunity for you to kind of maybe find some balance this week, right? Is that,
Yes.
yes.
Winter break is amazing. We've been
Hmm.
off since the 22nd. We're off until the 2nd. I've
Awesome.
been very fortunate enough. I know some other families have not been, that my daycare is still open. So I've
Yeah.
taken this opportunity to spend time with my husband, and we've been going out with our dogs and, going to visit some other like neighborhoods around us, and
Uh,
just like have that time to connect with each other, which is
yeah.
really important.
That's awesome.
But even during like the regular work year, it's, as you know, with a kid in daycare, anything can happen. And it does. It does. For
Yep.
example, a few weeks ago, I, thought I was going to have my normal day, dropped my son off home by 8:30, had a few minutes to decompress, enjoy my coffee, get ready for the day. I got a call at 10 a.m. that my son, who's just like getting confident walking, fell and smashed his face on a table.
Oh,
And his tooth may have
no.
gone through his lip. So they were like, you probably want to take him to go get some stitches. And so the day that I thought I had planned out did not go according to plan.
Yep.
I found in motherhood that you have to be very comfortable becoming uncomfortable, of being able to pivot quickly.
Yes.
And so having a company that has supported that type of work life balance, where I have to say, hey, I need to leave. I'm going to be gone for at least a few hours.
Yeah.
But they know that I know what I need to get done. And even if I don't do it in those core hours because I'm at the emergency room figuring out how many
Hmm.
stitches my son needs, that, he's going to go to bed that night. I'm going to finish what I need to get done. I'll spend some time on the weekend while my husband can help, play with my son in the meantime. That for me is work life balance
Yeah.
as a mom, being able to say, hey, like between 8 and 9, I can't be in meetings because that's when I take my son to school.
Yeah.
Or, hey, school is closed on this day because they're having a teacher parent conference
Yeah.
day.
Right.
I need to be, home. And
Yeah.
that's the work life balance that really shows itself through the flexibility at BPM.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you feel like your friends and stuff work like the companies they work for are doing similar things these days, or what's kind of the conversations with
Um,
fellow moms and friends?
Being in the Bay Area, I have a lot of friends that are still in tech.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of them during COVID moved. Like I had a friend who was in city, they bought a house in Sonoma.
Oh yeah.
They had friends that bought houses in Hawaii. A lot of people distributed, with the
Hmm.
fact that all these companies have said, we're not going to make you come back. Don't worry about it. Um, and now they're all commuting 2 to 3 hours a day because these companies have kind of taken that back and said, well, we really want you to come back to the office at least 3 days a week. Um, so in that regard, I see a lot of my friends getting kind of screwed
Yeah.
because they had formed this life around this work situation that they no longer have.
Hmm.
So it's hard to see that like these expectations have changed, or the path that they were on they've had to change. But again, parenthood is about pivoting, and they make it work. And some of them have definitely looked for new jobs because of this, to try to go to companies that are 100% a remote and plan to stay that way. And I
Yeah.
don't blame them.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, it's too bad. It sounds like these companies maybe didn't have get really good practices in place during that time and lost that sense of engagement and think the only way to come back is to bring everyone together. But I think I've seen a lot of companies get really creative in their ways of bringing their teams together and their people together. So
Right. I think it's almost lazy of companies to be like, oh, like the only way that we can get our company culture back is to have people in the office.
yeah,
And that's not true. Like I
no,
see it happen all the time of, we have these monthly or quarterly meetings where we all get together and have breakout rooms and get to
uh,
know each other. And these are people that I would have never talked to in an office anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, so in a way, it's more engaging
Yeah.
and it's more comfortable because I get to do it from where I'm doing my best work.
Yeah. How did I guess one question I have is like how was the onboarding process since you started remote with them?
Yeah, I well, because I started a new job during COVID in
Uh,
2021, that
yeah.
was like my first fully remote onboarding
Mhm.
experience. Coming back to BPM and doing it again, it was maybe easier because I'd already done it once.
Yeah.
Felt a little weird the first time because I was just like, oh, usually like we have lunch and we like get to meet
You know,
the leaders of the company or
walk
things like
around
that.
and shake hands.
Right. But coming back, it was like a well-oiled machine now. They were just like, okay, like here's how you are gonna, do your I-9 paperwork, and here's how you're going to have IT log on and make sure that everything's working correctly. And I think having the systems and processes in place
Mhm.
was not something that was a first round iteration. It took
Mhm.
time. But now that all of our teams, I think like people on our L&D team who were part of onboarding are in like Kansas. Some of our IT people are here in the Bay Area, but some of them are in Southern California. So
Mhm.
already going into it, having people in those places makes you already default to doing everything remotely.
Mhm.
So it felt very seamless.
Yeah. Awesome. Does being a video person, does your company leverage video in any way for their onboarding or recruiting?
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm always in one of these boxes.
Oh yeah.
My life is one of these boxes. But we just had our like all hands meeting maybe 2 months ago. And video was a huge component of that because we had our leaders in the office, but it was like, how do we connect people to these leaders virtually? And it is through video. It's making sure that people are seeing faces in real time, talking about the things that matter. And I
Mhm.
think video is the most engaging medium to do that because you
Mhm.
could have calls, but that's so easy to get distracted by, especially if you have little ones running around your house.
Mhm. Yep.
But I think there's a lot of like empathy and there's a lot of emotion that comes through video that you can't get a lot of other ways. And you get to have it recorded, which is so nice to refer back to, especially during that like chunk of financial year end things that you know are really important. And you're just like, wait, what did that mean? Or
Yeah.
how do we go back and like hear what they said again? Having that opportunity to be able to rewatch is, I think, I go back throughout the year.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do they keep all that for you? Like, is it just like on their server or something to go back and reference or?
On our intranet. So
Yeah.
we have a whole page that's like laid out for all hands of like, here are the different handouts we talked about. Here are
Cool.
clips so that people don't have to watch the whole day long presentation again. It's like, here, if you want to talk about our financial update, watch this clip. If you want to learn about our new partners, watch this clip.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that people have a place to go back to be like, especially when new people join the firm throughout the year, to be
Yeah.
able to share those clips of videos of like, here's our new partners, or here's how we're talking about DE and I in the year ahead, things like that.
Cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you feel like we haven't covered, or anything else you want to take a minute to brag about your company?
um, I think one of the things that's really important to talk about is um, I'm not the only person that we call them boomerangs. I'm not the only boomerang to BPM. There's been a lot of people over the last year or so coming off of the great resignation of people who left and came back because the culture is so good. And I think
Mhm.
that's a testament to a good company.
Yeah.
Is not only did BPM not lay off people, period, during COVID, um, they they created a space where people can have that trust, can have those conversations where they really feel like the leaders actually care about you and what's going on in your family.
Hmm.
I got a personally signed card from our CEO for my birthday, and
Oh,
that's like super old school. But at the
yeah.
same time, it like goes to show that not only does he like know me, but he cares enough about me to like take the time to do stuff like that. So while the new school way of doing business remotely is really important, especially for moms, I think those like old school little things come out that actually keep you connected to a company. And I'm so glad to be back here and to be able to experience those.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time from your winter break to join us here on the podcast. And this has been really
Yeah.
enlightening. And I hope a lot of mothers get to hear this episode.
Yeah.
Mothers and
Well,
fathers, parents.
yes, all parents for sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck with having the kiddos at home for a little while longer.
Thank you. Yes. One more week.